I see a lot of talk too about the tight end position. And I want to kind of, there's not a specific listener question on that, but I saw a comment about CJ Uzoma. I see some stuff about Tyler Eifert in there. And this is something I'm curious to also hear about how listeners feel about the tight end position for the Bengals this year. That one's kind of a boomer bust type of situation for me as well. When you look at who they have and kind of what these guys that they currently have done. I was kind of a little bit of a proponent of maybe the Bengals want to use one of those mid-round picks that they had in this year's draft on a tight end that could potentially supplant a guy like Tyler Kroft, maybe a developmental guy. They got Mason Schreck in the 7th round. Probably going to be a practice squad guy, but if you remember when Joe Goodberry was on the show, he actually really likes Mason Schreck as a long-term prospect. So we'll see if something works out there. But I'm a little nervous about the tight end spot on this year's team, only because we know the deal with Eifert, and he's coming off another injury. He's recovered. He's probably going to be ready for training camp, we think. But we also know it's kind of funny. I had a game that was recorded that I ended up rewatching recently, and every time I noticed every time he gets a catch and gets tackled, I almost hold my breath, even though these are old games. I already know what happened, but it's the same thing with the live games. Just because you know what a talent he is and you know what kind of injury issues he's had with this team, and he's so critical to the offense. So I worry about him. Uzoma showed some nice progress last year. He stepped in a few times for Eifert and made some plays here and there. Again, he was a guy that was really raw when they drafted him, so it was good to see him kind of make some nice strides in his second year. Kroft, to me, has been a disappointment. I'm not seeing the infatuation there. I would like to believe that he's going to make another leap this year, but he's not a huge receiving threat at this point in his NFL career. He's an okay blocker. That's kind of all you can really say about him. And though the Bengals don't use multiple tight ends, they do at times, but not as much as other teams. And though they use Eifert frequently, I still think that position group could have used some help in the draft. And I might be alone on that. When I've written about it on Cincy Jungle, I've kind of received kind of lukewarm sentiments on it. But I do think that the team probably needs to replenish that spot a little bit. Now you've got Eifert potentially hitting free agency next year, and you want to give him an extension this summer, but it's probably got to be something that's incentive laden because of all the injuries, and it's a tough position to figure out. Luckily, the team kind of replenished the wide receiver group over the past couple of years with the losses there. They've got a lot of good running backs, so there's some help there. And I'm not saying these guys are bad players by any stretch. Eifert or Kroft is one I'm kind of iffy on, but they're good when they're out there. And Uzoma, as I mentioned, he had a pretty decent year stepping in for Eifert last year, but he also missed 6 games with injury. So unfortunately, that position is just a very physical position that takes a lot of big hits across the middle. They are asked to block, so there's some hitting in that aspect. So they're a little vulnerable in terms of how they use their body in the sport, but they got to get guys that are out there often. And the Patriots have experienced some of the same stuff with Rob Gronkowski. They've been able to get past it. The Bengals, they have and they haven't. Unfortunately, they also lost AJ Green, Giovanni Bernard last year. So there was a lot of weapons that were missing. Hopefully that doesn't happen again this year, but that's a spot I'm a little worried about. There's been some talk of it in the YouTube chat, and I'm a little worried about it. I'm a little worried about it, but if Eifert can manage to play, those 12, 13, 14 games, maybe just gets nicked up here and there and misses a game or two, I think he will have another very productive season. It's just a matter of that big if. And that's unfortunately the question that the team is looking at right now, because they're obviously interested in re-signing him and getting him locked up long term, but that's a big if at this point.